Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Dr. Jennifer Cassidy. I'm a Programme Manager with the Irish Research Council. Absolutely delighted that you could meet us today. And for those of you who did reach out and say that you had teaching duties, please don't worry because we're recording the webinar as it stands, and we'll circulate the recording afterwards. So it's really my pleasure to introduce our co-panelists today. So first and foremost from the IRC, my colleague Dr. Anna Stefanovska is my support staff on COALESCE and New Foundation. So just to thank Anna for her support in bringing this event today. And from our strategic funding partners, we have Michael McDonough, who is the Chief Archaeologist in the National Monument Service, and Ian Doyle, who is the Head of Conservation in the Heritage Council. So I'll pass periodically between Michael and Ian, but I just thought it might be nice to give some perspective from the IRC. We're obviously absolutely delighted to have the National Monument Service and the Heritage Council represented today, but really we wanted to bring some more technical information before the call closes. Very excited, obviously, but if we can just move very swiftly to a very short presentation from myself, and then I'll pass on to my other panelists. Bear with me. So from the IRC's perspective, we fund all disciplines, so from A to Z. So it's one of the few times in which we can pull archaeology to zoology and it actually be very meaningful. So that's one of our unique traits that we fund from A to Z. Those of you who have been with us along the way would know that our strategic plan we published last year, so we're 1 year into that, and some of the commitments we make are to be a partner of choice. So certainly one of our key targets is to bring in more government departments and obviously open that into the sector. So we're obviously delighted to be here today. Within my own personal remit, I have more concentration on the principal investigator-led awards, but we do fund all career stages as well. So that's one thing to note, that we fund from master's level right up to even the laureate scheme, which is open now. So that is another unique feature of the IRC. And then in August, for those of you with a keen eye, you would have seen that we made a major announcement with the National Monument Service and the Heritage Council that with the support from Minister Noonan, that there will be a 2.2 million investment in the archaeological research sector. And we're absolutely delighted to administer that on behalf of our colleagues. So here in the Strand 1L was born. The lettering isn't ideal, but again, that shows you the number of partners we brought in. We're going through the alphabet fairly swiftly, but exactly we're in the phase of call open for the INSTAR Plus program. Michael and Ian are going to go in a little bit more about the objectives of that, certainly from the original INSTAR, which we have invigorated for this call. And I just wanted to give a quick note on some key dates from our perspective in the IRC. That's really all we talk about, our dates. And so from the call opening, we have the applicant deadline, which is the 23rd of November. So it may sound silly, but we do typically have a lot of traffic on the day. So please do, for the prudent and for the conscientious, we would encourage you to submit early, please. But yeah, the 23rd at 4 p.m. Irish time is our deadline. And then after your submission, the endorsement deadline for your research office will be 1 week after, so the 30th of November at 4 p.m. We also have the stage of frequently asked questions that will remain open until the 16th of November. So any questions received before and on the day will be answered in the final round. So, and you can also expect an outcome in May of 2022. Around the eligibility, so the eligibility under COALESCE, it's a principal investigator-led scheme, so you must be hosted within an eligible higher education institution or research performing organisation, which is listed on our website, and that is within the Republic of Ireland. So we have a comprehensive list on our site. I have a screenshot on the next page, but that you can find links to that in the call document, and you must have a contract of sufficient duration until the project end date. So from Strand 1L, the maximum duration of these projects would be 24 months. And that would be something that your research office would endorse, that your contract is in place after your submission. You must also have completed your doctoral degree before the 31st of May and in 2020. So that is 2 years post PhD, and that matches your, if you're familiar with Strand 2A, that's the IRC funded strand. So it's 2 years post PhD with a contract of sufficient duration in an eligible HEI. So those of you who are interested applicants, absolutely, if you have queries on the technical perspective, you can discuss with your research office and also with ourselves in the IRC. We'd be happy to discuss that. Also, from an evaluation perspective, we have our categories within the appendix. We do encourage that applicants read through those to see what categories they will be assessed on. And again, there should be nice crossover between those of you who have had interest within the IRC's principal investigator-led schemes before, that this Strand 1L sits very nicely within that scheme. So please do reach out to myself and Anna, also with the research office, who are extremely supportive every year, especially when we bring in new partners for calls. But we do like to have discussion, particularly before the applicant deadline, so as early as possible. And certainly you might have some more questions during this webinar. So like I said, we have a list of eligible HEIs that's on our website, and that's regularly updated. So if you're unsure, you can check that and then discuss with your research office and then post any questions with ourselves. We're at projects@research.ie, that's our email. So with that, I'm going to pass over to Michael in the National Monument Service, and Michael is going to take us through some more background into INSTAR Plus, and then following that, we'll pass over to Ian. Thanks a million. You're on mute, Michael.
We've only been at this a year and a half, and I still haven't got that right. A very good morning, Jennifer. Thank you. And thank you to Anna and Ian for joining me. Good morning to all those who are joining us this morning live, but also to those who may catch us up on record after. I'll be giving a few follow-on slides from Jennifer, and then followed by Ian, who'll talk a little bit about some successful projects from the original INSTAR. Next slide, please. Jen, thanks. INSTAR Plus is a successor to the INSTAR program launched in 2008, and our credit to the Heritage Council for taking the lead on that original INSTAR, which between 2008 and 2014 funded the completion of a number of substantial research projects addressing key archaeological questions, and Ian will talk about those a little bit later. We are delighted to be partnering with the Irish Research Council this year, and we are very grateful to them for their high quality, excellent administration of the scheme. We look forward to working with them over the coming years on INSTAR under their COALESCE Research Fund. It is funded by National Monument Service. We are currently in the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage, and Jennifer spoke to Mr. Noonan's address and announcement in August of a significant €2.2 million. We were looking at what was happening across the sector in the UK, across academia. We were seeing the capacity issues, and we felt very strongly that there was a need to inject significant investment into building capacity and to realizing the value of archaeological excavation and realizing the value of archaeological knowledge. Thus was born INSTAR Plus, choosing deliberately to link it with the previous INSTAR because it was known to the higher education institutes, and it had form. And that is why we have decided to link it to that as INSTAR Plus. INSTAR, the original, was founded to address key archaeological questions and in response to a need to support a competitive and collaborative research program to bring about transformative change in the quality of archaeological research. And that need to support a collaborative archaeological research program continues. Next slide, Jen, please. So the objective of INSTAR Plus, linked very much to the original INSTAR, is to fully realize the potential of Ireland's archaeological record, transforming our understanding of how Ireland's society has evolved The main objective will be to ensure that the large amounts of archaeological work previously undertaken in the context of development-led excavations is translated into knowledge about Ireland's past. And we list separate objectives on the IRC website in the call text. The themes are the same as INSTAR because the same questions persist. Cultural identity, territories and boundaries, resources, technology and craft, exchange and trade, religion and ritual, environment and climate change, landscapes and settlement, and archaeology and contemporary society. Next slide, please, Jen. We speak about transforming the knowledge of archaeological excavation and that information into knowledge about our past. And just to give you an update, that since 2014, National Monuments Service has licensed over 7,000 archaeological excavations under the National Monuments Act, and those include archaeological excavations under directions for approved road schemes. There has already been some synthesis of that material with fantastic work by TII, obviously, in relation to their specific road schemes, as well as other academic synthetic work. But there is clearly, given the numbers of excavations being licensed since the original INSTAR end and conclusion in 2014, there is clearly a lot of material yet to be mined to increase our knowledge about Ireland's past. Thank you, Jen. I think that's over to Ian now.
Thanks, Michael.
Oh, sorry, is there another slide? Sorry, I beg your pardon. And most importantly, we are enshrining in INSTAR Plus the concept of collaboration and partnership, and that is about developing capacity across the sector. It is a key tenet of INSTAR Plus, as indeed it was in the original INSTAR. And applicants are expected to reference research partnerships from the following groups: the archaeological consultancy and SME sector, academic institutions on the island of Ireland, as well as international academic and research bodies, state bodies, and local community groups. So the research consortium must be formed from 3 or more of the following groups: the archaeological consultancy sector, academic institutions, international academic and research bodies, state bodies, and local community groups.
Now I might pass over then to Ian. Thanks so much, Michael.
I've got one more slide. This is well rehearsed by me. Applications must contain an explicit and a reasoned statement, also contained within the project proposal document, of how the research relates to substantive areas of inquiry within one of those thematic areas as previously listed, and applications of an interdisciplinary nature are welcome. Prospective applicants are advised to check the relevant sections in the call document to ensure they meet eligibility criteria and requirements, as Jen has already alluded to. 220,000 maximum euro per project, although there is no minimum amount to that. And the funded project must start in Q3 2022 and be completed within 24 months, although obviously smaller projects can be completed within a shorter timeframe. Thanks, Jen. I think that is me now.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay, thanks, Jen. Yeah, Ian Doyle is my name from the Heritage Council. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. It's a pleasure to be working on this with Michael, Anna and Jen. I think, as in all things, we can achieve so much more when we work together and we collaborate. We launched this scheme in 2008, and we were a little bit unsure at the time in terms of what kind of reception we were going to get, but the archaeological profession rose to it, and we noticed that very quickly the term INSTAR entered the kind of lexicon of practice. People would refer to things like such and such as INSTAR or during their INSTAR project, and it took on a life of its own, and we were delighted with that. In terms of the kind of projects that were developed based on the research framework that was developed in 2007, we put out the various calls, and we had some very notable successes, projects which garnered international recognition. It's invidious to pick, but you kind of have to give a flavour of the kind of projects that were successful, and just to give a sense of what worked in the past. The early medieval archaeology project, one based in UCD in Queens, was a project that just grew momentum and worked out. It was based on a number of very durable partnerships, producing a number of monographs, papers, conferences, seminars, everything. And it really sought to synthesize the vast amounts of archaeological information relating to the early medieval period and put it into that kind of academic context. That worked well. The other project that kept giving long after the closing dates and the end of its funding was the Queen's Cultivating Societies project, which set out to look at plant remains and radiocarbon dates from the Neolithic period across Ireland. And you can see the team there. And I can show you, I think I might have another slide about some of its outputs. The Cage of Fields one based in UCD, the North Mayo Archaeological Landscapes project, sought to map the various field systems in North Mayo and to collate information on all of the various excavations that took place from the 1960s. That assembled all of those reports and undertook new dating. That was quite an impressive output. And then there's another one based in University of Ulster in Coleraine, the bottom right slide, based on bathymetric mapping of our coasts and shipwrecks, and was working with the Marine Institute and the National Monuments Underwater Archaeological Unit. So again, that partnership team worked really well. So I think just based on those 4 slides, the amount of partnerships and critical mass and getting people to work together was just a really significant aspect of this. What we changed this year in terms of INSTAR is we introduced a desire, a need to see more community groups involved. I think one of the great changes in archaeological practice in the last 10 years or so has been the development of community archaeology practice and the role for communities. And we'd like to see opportunities for community groups to be involved in some of these projects, and in a way of building up a sense of ownership of archaeological heritage and understanding of place. And next slide, please. Just to speak to that involvement, in 2008, we had almost an equal split between universities, overseas universities, private companies, and state agencies. We were really pushing the partnership aspect at that time, and that worked well. Next slide, please. In terms of outputs, this graph is what, 8 to 18, the span of the INSTAR program. We did really well on papers, presentations, as you expect, in orange, really good. Lot of digital databases, GIS, conferences, and books then in yellow. So really papers and books were the key output. Next slide, please. In terms of those books, and it's been added to since I took this image, and the EMAP one was the heavy hitter there, but also the Making Christian Landscapes, Mapping Debt, but also the People of Prehistoric Ireland project in Queens produced a monograph, new monograph from UCC, The Churches in the Irish Landscape, book by Tommaso Carragon, which is a direct follow-on from Making Christian Landscapes, and then the Mapping Debt book, Betty O'Brien's book published earlier this year, was a direct output from the Mapping Debt INSTAR project as well, and then numerous peer-reviewed papers. So there's more than in this image. Next slide, please, Jen. Just to try summarize the kind of outputs, just papers, presentations, books. We'd be hoping for that again. I think a lot of the INSTAR outputs, I haven't listed out what the presentations and papers are, but it was a standard feature of conferences like the European Archaeological Association in various years, INSTAR projects. A couple of the projects really hit the gold standard in terms of where they were publishing in international journals, Antiquity, the Journal of Environmental Archaeology, and that was really where we wanted to go. We wanted to showcase that Irish archaeology is internationally relevant, that we had data sets here based on 20 odd years of development projects, which were internationally relevant. And I think several of the projects did achieve that. And I think that's where we really want to go again with this, to show that partnerships work in Irish archaeology, that the quality of the data, the field work and the outputs are there and are of international standard. And really, we want to end that kind of situation where you see distribution maps with Ireland off on the western extremity of Europe without data being available. I think we went a long way to that, and I think we can continue that again. So we look forward to seeing applications coming in this new iteration of INSTAR and working in partnership and seeing partnership across the sector. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks so much. So let me just stop the screen sharing. Thanks so much, Ian. Thanks a million, Michael. So I think you can certainly get a flavour of the enthusiasm from the Heritage Council and the National Monument Service, but equally we have had a lot of enthusiasm from the sector. So my thanks to the Research Office and also to prospective applicants who have reached out with some of your queries. We had taken the time to have some conversations more so about the most frequently asked queries, and I would like to take the opportunity maybe to run through a couple that have really been the most frequently asked, obviously for the benefit of the participants, but also for those who are not able to join us. There is a call to make one or two amendments to the call document, so that will obviously be published and that will be circulated to everyone. So there's not, you're obviously missing out on the presentations if you're not here, but we will certainly circulate to the wider audience the discussion with regards to the queries. So if you don't mind, I might just pull up one of the queries that we had received. Certainly one of the most frequently asked is around the eligibility criteria for the partners. So obviously I had one slide dedicated to the lead applicant who must meet X, Y, and Z, but between the National Monument Service and the Heritage Council, we did discuss around who could be a partner. Now, the take-home message is that the lead applicant must meet the criterion in that 3 members of the sectors that Michael had mentioned must be represented on your application. But we do not have a definitive list of partners. It remains the onus of the lead applicant to demonstrate the value added of each partner. So there's certainly a flexibility there. We really don't want to predefine a list of certain individuals, and obviously there's the international aspect as well, because the lead applicant must be based in the Republic of Ireland. Ian had mentioned some projects based in Northern Ireland. Obviously the further afield are welcome as partners. So we at this point in time don't have a definitive list. So for those of you who had raised that query, you can take it as that their value added must be demonstrated in your application, which will be assessed. So hopefully that does speak to, because a couple of people had asked that in different ways, but hopefully that speaks to it in that it will be assessed by the international panel. So do feel free to come back if you have any other questions, but once the lead applicant meets the eligibility around the 3 partners within the list that we have predefined in the call document, that should be fine. So then we also received a question about the number of applications an individual can make. And strictly speaking, for Strand 1L, considering the sector and considering the disciplinary around archaeology, we have taken the decision not to limit the number of applications. So an individual can make multiple applications to the scheme, and the system will allow for that. One thing to note is that if you are successful on more than one award, obviously we'd have to have a discussion then about time management, etc., but that would be a post-award matter. So the take-home message that will also be added to the call document for colleagues who aren't here is that we are allowing more than one application to be submitted per individual. That also speaks to an archaeology consultant or a partner who wishes to be involved on more than one project. That is also fine. Again, their value added must be clearly demonstrated in the project description, but it goes with partners, but also for the individual. So again, hopefully that relieves some tension for individuals who have really excellent ideas and want to make their best bid, you will be facilitated to make more than one application. And then, apologies. We were asked about whether or not somebody could be a partner, but also provide a service to the scheme. So if somebody had really unique technology for analysis of sampling, etc., could they be named as a partner, but not named as a partner because they wanted to use them as a consultant? The answer is that within the eligible expenditure, if somebody has critical access to research infrastructure, that is allowable and can be costed in the budget. It just has to be fully justified. So that is absolutely fine. If a partner brings something totally unique and crucial to the project, it just has to be clearly defined and well justified. And then we had further been asked about the requirement to build a consortium, but that there was a mismatch between the limits of consultancy and the limits of collaboration costs. So that is obviously something that we discussed at length with the Heritage Council and with the National Monument Service. So this will also be another formal amendment to the call document that we are in agreement that for Strand 1L, we will lift the maximum up to 20,000 for consultancy, and we will also lift the maximum of 10% up to 20% for collaboration costs. That is a Strand 1L specific. So again, hopefully that would allow more inclusive partnerships within your intersectoral consortium. Again, queries around that, you're still up to a maximum of 220k, and that is also still inclusive of overheads of 25%. So definitely take home message is that while partnerships are a requirement, they're also hopefully well facilitated now within the budget, and that's something that will be reflected very shortly in the call doc. If there are any concerns around that, absolutely do come back to us. But I think that's one of the things we were actually really happy to see, that a lot of potential applicants had flagged that they wanted to see equity in partnerships. So I think we were absolutely delighted to facilitate that. And I think from my perspective, that was the most frequently asked questions. I might open up to my colleagues Ian and Michael in case I've missed something, in case there are any further messages we want to share before we close, but those were certainly the most frequently asked questions, and they will be published as well for colleagues who weren't able to join us.
Thank you, Jennifer. May I just add and add to Ian's comments as well as your own, how exciting a time we feel this is for Irish archaeology. We're bucking the trend in terms of international support for archaeology and in terms of support for the academic sector. INSTAR, as Ian so well pointed out, had significant impact in terms of displaying the significance of Irish archaeology, but also importantly, the quality of our processes which lead to archaeological excavation enshrined within a planning process, which, as we know from looking at other jurisdictions, can never be taken for granted, no matter how well within the EU we sit. So what this is an opportunity for us to do is to show Irish archaeology on the international stage as it should be, but also to enshrine the principle of sustainable development and embedding archaeological excavation within a full planning process. That is very important from a policy and strategic point of view. We're very excited about it. We look forward to receiving some wonderful applications from you, and we look forward to working with you in the years ahead. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Michael. Ian, do you have any closing comments, burning questions or otherwise before we close?
No, just we look forward to seeing what applications come in.
Absolutely.
I think INSTAR was predicated upon, we had created a system that was brilliant at getting archaeology out of the ground. We were less good at figuring out what it meant, what all that data was about. And I think that need still exists. I think what's changed as well since we set it up are all kinds of amazing and exciting techniques like isotope analysis, dietary analysis, DNA, the kind of things that don't normally happen on traditional development-led archaeological projects, there's opportunity for added value there. So we're really looking forward to seeing what the sector can rise to. So if you have any queries, you know what to do. Approach the IRC and we'll do our best to answer them. So we're looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. So I think that comes back to me then to close and to thank Michael, Ian and Anna for your contributions today. Like I said, we will follow up formally to make those amendments within the call document, which are specific for Strand 1L. We'll also publish the FAQs, obviously with the answers we discussed today, and if there were more specific queries that had been more targeted towards more personal applications, we'll get back to those as well. And just a final reminder that the FAQs will also remain open until the 16th of November. Please do chat to your research office in advance of your submissions to that, and obviously to make your submission to the call on or before the 23rd of November, as it's usually busy on the submission date. So with that, I'd just like to thank everybody for joining, and I'll close the webinar from here. So take care, everybody.
Thank you.
All the best. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.